Hello and welcome, beautiful soul. I am Natalia Walter, and it's always a pleasure to be here with you, opening right now the sacred portal, the sacred channel, so we can deep dive into one of the most important phases of a spiritual development journey. And today I will be sharing a little bit of my story when my training, let's put it like this, really started so I could reach the point of opening my own spiritual center where I would work with the medicines, ayahuasca, rapé, sananga, jurema, and so on. And I really love to use my own story to share these insights, this knowledge, because I am exactly coming from a place of truth, of alignment, of my own experience. So this is a very personal sharing. It's not about a book that I've read, nor about someone else's story. I am talking about my own spiritual training. So I know that after we go through a very deep spiritual awakening, we also start our training, the soul's training, so we can really achieve our purposes, our dharma, and align our path with the path that our soul chose for us in this lifetime. So I invite you to find a very comfortable position. You all know how I love to share these stories and not just talking about the things that we are going to talk about, but really activating you into a new level of self-awareness, into a new level of consciousness. So really find a comfortable position where you can relax your body, where you can align yourself to not just hear, but to really receive these activations on a soul level. Let's take a deep breath. So inhale with me, bringing into this moment everything that you wish to anchor in yourself, and exhale everything that you want to release right now, everything that you want to get out of your field. One more inhale, anchoring yourself in the present moment, and exhale. One more deep inhale, and exhale. Well done. Feel your body anchoring into this moment. Feel the presence of your soul. Feel your light ascending. Feel yourself connecting with these activations, with this sacred portal. And just intend to open your heart to receive way beyond words, to receive the divine transmission that will be shared here with you. You can either open your eyes or you can be with your eyes closed. The most important thing is for you to be comfortable, is to be aware, is to be present. And we will start with the first question. When did your path shift from receiving healing to offering it? So let me just make a recap. On the previous episode, which was the opening of this portal, I've shared a lot about my beginning, the spiritual awakening through ayahuasca, my first ayahuasca trip experience. And I also shared that that moment was a turning point in my life because I faced a lot of darkness, a lot of shadows, and I started to make this really deep work into my shadow self. And it was a turning point because I was invited by life, by the universe, by my higher self to really choose if I wanted to stick on that shadow path or if I wanted to move into this new path of alignment with my Dharma, with my soul's purpose. So from that moment on, I consider that I started my spiritual development, my spiritual training, because my soul had and have a purpose for this lifetime, and I wasn't quite ready to really anchor this purpose and to materialize it. I needed training. I needed to develop some of my spiritual gifts that at the moment were asleep. So I started to awaken in different levels of consciousness, of awareness, and some of them were the awakening of my spiritual gifts. But it's not just about awakening your intuition, your gifts, but it's also learning how to use them. Because we all have intuition, we all have access to the divine source, the divine intelligence. But most of us actually don't know exactly how to use it or what to do with our spiritual gifts. I see a lot of people that feel lost, that feel confused about how to integrate those spiritual gifts into their day-to-day lives. And I know how overwhelming this can feel because I was there, I was in this moment, I was in this place of awakening, but okay, what's next? What should I do with all of this? So I started to take the medicine, to experience ayahuasca, and I said on the previous episodes that the first couple of years of my experiences with the medicine, they were extremely challenging because they really put me in front of a lot of shadows, of a lot of parts of myself that I didn't want to accept. And it was a really struggling phase for me because I was awakening and I felt this movement, this process happening, but I wasn't quite aware or I didn't know exactly what to do and how to really develop myself. And this was the moment when I started to intend to be in the right place, to be with the right people, people who would help me to reach this level of awareness, of spiritual development, where I would understand my purpose and know exactly what to do with it. But the funny part is that I wasn't consciously intending this. I felt that this was an unconscious movement from my soul redirecting me to the right place. So I started taking ayahuasca in a spiritual center. Here in Brazil, we call O Chamado da Floresta. And then I was redirected to another spiritual center that here in Brazil we call Jiboia Sagrada. And when I arrived at Jiboia, I knew, my soul knew, this is my place. This is my house. This is where everything is going to happen for me. And when I arrived there, I was very naive because it was like my fourth time with ayahuasca. So I was at the very beginning of my journey. And the first experience that I had there was massive. It was amazing, but also very challenging, just like the first one. And I ended this first ceremony in Jiboia feeling like, okay, this is my place, but it was so challenging that I don't know if I want to come back. And I was facing the same dilemma from the first time, where I had the experience. It was terrible but awesome at the same time, and my ego was resisting it. My ego was saying, why do you want to keep going? Why are you putting yourself into these situations? Oh my gosh. Why? Because this is so difficult. This is so challenging. And the ego has this way of doing things, like avoiding the suffering, avoiding the struggle, avoiding the challenges. But my soul knew that I had to continue. And so I started to go weekly at the ceremonies. And this clicked a very interesting process inside of me, because I knew that there was something more for me there, not just attending the ceremonies, but I felt this urge, this deep feeling that I don't want to just stay here receiving. I also want to help. But of course, at that time, I wasn't ready to do anything but receive the medicine. And so weekly, I was taking ayahuasca, sometimes Saturday, sometimes Friday and Saturday, always taking the medicine, sometimes even going on Wednesday. And I started a very intense immersion with the medicine. If you ask me if it was comfortable, I can definitely affirm to you that it wasn't comfortable at all. But I knew at a soul level that I needed to do this training, that I needed to receive this healing so I could be ready to answer this soul call to help and to really be there for other people as well, not just for me. And it was by that time as well that I started to date my husband, that is also my soul partner. And so we were always together because he was living at the spiritual center. And while I was in college and trying to conciliate everything, my job at the time, college, and my spiritual development, I was very engaged on being there for the ceremonies, and not just for the ceremonies, but also engaging in the other activities that were taking place in the spiritual center. Because let me make this parenthesis here. A spiritual ceremony, it's very beautiful because you arrive there and you see everything settled, everything ready for you to receive the medicine. But you have to understand that behind the scenes, there is a lot of work that needs to happen so the ceremony can be the way it is. So it can be beautiful, so it can be secure, so it can be ready to really connect you with the spiritual realms. So I engaged myself fully. I even helped to build the temple that today is the Temple of Jiboia Sagrada here in Brazil. So it was not just the spiritual development, it was a physical development as well. Building walls, building a temple, building the foundations of what would be this major spiritual center today in Brazil. So I was there, and while we were in this building phase, I was also building my own spiritual structure. And I've learned a lot. I was taking ayahuasca several times per week. When I wasn't taking ayahuasca, I was helping with the activities of the center and conciliating everything with my day-to-day life. So it was a very intense journey for me. But at the moment, I knew that that was exactly the kind of training that I needed to fortify myself to be ready to help in the way that I was calling to help. And so the moment that I felt the shift, that I was actually ready to help and that I was ready to perform beyond the scenes, behind the scenes actually, that I was ready to be in the ceremony helping people, was a very intimate ceremony that I was having with my godmother and some other people there. And my godmother needed help during that moment. And somehow she asked me to help her. And I didn't felt ready, but because it sounded like a huge responsibility. I mean, she was the facilitator at the time, and I was just there receiving the ceremony. But she asked me, Natalia, I need your help. And when she asked me, I received this confirmation from Spirit. Now you are ready to help, and you will start helping your godmother. So that was a very, very important moment in my path, in my journey, because I was helping the woman who was helping me in every ceremony. She was taking care of me. She was teaching me. She was guiding me. And suddenly, she was the one who needed help. So we've changed the roles. I was helping her. I was providing her with the care, with the attention, with everything that she needed to go through her own process. And I remember it was a very happy moment for me, because at the end of the ceremony, she came to me and she said, "You are ready. It's time for you to get up and to help and to be there for people." And so from that moment on, I started to help during the ceremonies as well, not just on the behind the scenes, but also on the ceremonies. By that time, we were receiving around 60 people per night of ceremony, and we were in 4 workers, guardians, plus the 2 facilitators, which were my godmother and my godfather. So 6 people to help 60. How interesting, right? 60 people with their conscious expanded, and we were there like soldiers, like warriors, to help. And as you can imagine, on a spiritual ceremony with ayahuasca, everything can happen. And you have to be ready for everything, indeed. And I remember from the first ceremony that I was up to help, I intended, Spirit, guide me. May I be this vessel. May I be this divine instrument, because I know that my ego has its limitations. So I'm here to serve. I am here to be this divine instrument. And I took ayahuasca to help people, and with my fellow guardians, we were very connected, we were very attuned to each other, and so we've worked the whole night in each ceremony, helping people and interacting with a lot of different cases. So this was the moment where everything shifted, where I felt and I received the confirmation through my godmother that I was ready to help. So let's move on to the second question. What was it like to begin your journey inside the spiritual center with ayahuasca as your teacher? So the most beautiful thing of having ayahuasca as a teacher is that you are always connected to the spiritual realms, to your intuition, and to your higher self, and you are able to receive this guidance directly from source, with no interference of people, of circumstances. You are connected. So when you are under effect of ayahuasca, at least in my case, at least in my experience, I was able to attune my intuition to perceive way beyond what the appearances looked like. What I mean by this is that you are so much more aware of what is actually happening, that you are also very much more prepared to help. Not just the person who is needing help during a ceremony, but actually to help yourself, because you are seeing yourself in every single situation that is presenting to you, not just during the ceremony, but also in your day-to-day life. So this was something that I've learned working with ayahuasca. We are always watching our own mirrors. And in the ceremonies, this is very interesting because you are under effect of the medicine, which means that you are receiving this inspiration, that you are receiving this guidance from the medicine, and you are also dealing with your own questions, with your own processes, with your own stuff. So each ceremony was very unique. There wasn't like a ceremony that was equal to another. They were very different because the people who came were different, the circumstances were different, the kind of things that came up for me were different. So I was always learning something new. And as you don't know what is going to happen and you have to be prepared for everything and anything, you can study yourself in different kinds of situations and in different circumstances. And this makes the process even more interesting because you are seeing yourself in everyone and everything, and you are really testing your limits. Because sometimes the effect of the medicine gets really intense, but you are there to help. So you cannot just, give up and, okay, deal with this alone. I am getting out of here. No, I have a purpose. I am here to help. So how can I deal with my own stuff while I am helping another human being? And let me make this very clear. The processes that comes up with ayahuasca, they are very deep. They are very intimate. And you are helping another soul to really reconnect with her divine wisdom, with her divine sovereignty. And you have to be in your center to not transfer or project your own wounds into another person, Because if we are not aware of this, we are constantly projecting our own stuff into another person. And this is another major teaching that I received from the medicine. Your thing is your thing. The other person's process is her process, but somehow they are connected. So the people who arrived to receive my medicine, to receive my help, they were somehow connected to my own inner processes. And this is very, very interesting because we do not control who comes to us. It was always a surprise. But if you stop and reflect upon what is coming to you, even in your day-to-day life, you will see exactly what I mean here. People are reflecting things about you. But we cannot project our own wounds, our own fears into another person's, or allow them to project themselves into us. We are learning with each other, but it's very important to know how to separate. This is mine, this is yours. We can learn together, but we cannot transfer the weight, the weight of our own process, of our own stuff. And so I was learning how to separate and not get so involved in another person's process, because this is something that can happen during a ceremony. You are sensitive. You are interacting with another person on a soul level. You are looking them in the eyes. You are touching another person's soul. And this is a very intimate process. So learning how to have the empathy of touching her soul without projecting your own stuff and without transferring your weight or receiving the person's weight, it's mastery. And during the time that I was working at Jiboia, this was a major teaching for me. To have the empathy, but to respect that everyone has its own rhythm, that everyone has its own processes, the way of dealing with things. And we have to learn how to respect this and not try to impose anything or, transfer our own stuff into another person's process. So having ayahuasca as a teacher was and is, because she is my teacher, is one of the greatest blessings of my life, really. Because you see so much more beyond the appearances, that you are able to collect pieces of wisdom, of knowledge, of experience in every single thing that happens to you. And I was actively receiving these teachings, receiving this knowledge in the ceremonies that I was attending, that I was helping people. And this prepared me for some of the major breakthroughs that was going to happen later on in my life. So, question 3. What were the first signs that your intuition, your spiritual gifts, were awakening? I think that since I was a little girl, I knew that there was something different about me, about the way that I was relating myself to life and the way that I expressed myself. I always felt very sensitive to energies, to people, and that's why I had, during the ceremonies, a level of empathy that was very deep. That kind of empathy where you can really feel into the person's field. Not just what they are speaking to you, but feel what they are communicating to you beyond words. But by the moment that I started to really help people during the ceremonies, I realized that I was being guided by something greater than myself when I started to notice that I wasn't calculating what I was doing or what I was saying or how would I help someone. Because remember, I said we couldn't predict what was going to happen in the ceremony. Actually, it was always a surprise. So when you are in this place where you are not in control, you start to perceive and to notice that there is a higher guidance happening through you, moving you, inspiring you. Sometimes I felt this nudge to get close to someone. I didn't know why. But when I get close to that person, the person said, "Thank God you are here. I was actually calling you in my thoughts." Or for example, I didn't know why. I just knew that I had to say something to someone. Or at the right moment and the right time, I hugged someone and the person was really needing that hug. So I realized that when I was under the effect of ayahuasca, my level of intuition was like really, really high, way beyond what I was perceiving in my day-to-day life. And I started to understand how this intuition worked actually. So by the experience with ayahuasca, I've sensed how my intuition worked, and I was able to get these teachings, to gather all of this training and start applying in my day-to-day life. So I call this the flow state. And I really felt when I was working, when I was helping, that I was in this flow state. I don't control, I just allow. And the signs were these nudges, these impulses that didn't came from my mind. They came from a deeper part of myself. That part where you cannot explain why. And you don't know actually why you are doing what you are doing. Perhaps it doesn't even make sense to your logical mind. You just know that you need to do exactly what you are doing. So this was one of the major signs that I was aligned to my intuition and that I was actually using my spiritual gifts. And also, during the ceremonies, I started to notice that I had some very unique talents, a very unique way of helping people, of relating to people inside the ceremony. And this started to open my eyes to see and to know my own medicine. Because I was watching my co-workers, let's put it like this, the other guardians that were working alongside with me, and I've noticed that they had their own way of doing things. And it was interesting because everything was being divine orchestrated by the medicine, by the spiritual realms, and we were absolutely different. We did things in a very different way, but each and every one of us was contributing exactly the way we needed to do things and exactly the way people needed to receive our medicine or help. So it was a very beautiful way of doing things. And I felt very in this flow state where you don't control, you just allow. You don't question, you just execute. This flow state, it's magical because this is where synchronicities happen. This is where you really learn how to use your magic, even when it doesn't make sense to the mind, to the ego. So if you want to really tune into your intuition and really to feel what are your spiritual gifts, I can say to you two things. First, stop comparing yourself to other people. Their gifts are their own gifts. You have your unique medicine. So if you are always comparing yourself to other people, you are trying to be like them, when actually you have your own sacred way of doing things. You have your own sacred design. You have your own wisdom, your own experience, your own intuition. And it's so beautiful when you can channel this, connect with this, and apply this, because then you are sharing with the world your own energetic signature. You are sharing your unique medicine, the medicine of your soul. And the second thing, if you want to really connect with your intuition, stop trying to question everything and start trusting the impulses, the nudges that just direct you to the right place, to the right time, to connect with the right people, to do exactly what you need to do. Because when we are thinking like, whoa, but where this is coming from? I mean, is this right? Should I be doing this? Or why is this coming up for me? When you start to question why is the intuition there, you actually block the experience of having the intuition. So the thing is really trusting it. Do not bring it to the rational mind, to the logical mind. It doesn't have to make sense. It just has to be aligned. So when I realized that I didn't have to question why and just started to flow with the instructions from Spirit, those were the most magical moments of my life. You just flow, you just allow, you just receive. So you really allow yourself to be a divine instrument of spirit, of consciousness. Moving forward, was there a moment you realized, I have a purpose here and it's bigger than I imagined? When I started to work in the spiritual center that I've mentioned to you, I was very young. I was about 20 or 21 years old. And honestly, I was being so guided and so inspired to do what I was doing that I wasn't questioning why am I here or, the future. I was so present. I was so engaged in being there that my divine purpose was actually happening without me even realizing that it was happening. But there was a very significant moment where I had this feeling and this intuition that this is greater than I imagined. And this was a ceremony where I was helping some people, and I felt this confirmation in my heart, in my soul, that there was something greater happening beyond what I could perceive at that time. And I received like this intuition, this information that I was being prepared for something greater. So I was actually in this very intense training, as I've mentioned, because I was having a lot of ceremonies, I was helping a lot of people, I was really developing myself in a lot of different ways and totally immersed in my purpose. But when I received this confirmation, I got, of course, a little bit anxious and at the same time excited to see and to understand more about this calling, about this greater development of myself, of my own path. But I wasn't forcing. I was just allowing. And that's why I share with you the importance of being really present in each and every phase of your life, because that was the time where I was being prepared for something greater that I will be sharing on the next episodes. But I was also enjoying myself at the time. I was enjoying being in that place as that guardian, as that person that was helping on the ceremonies, that was helping to build the temple, that was really present and engaging in all the activities that were happening at the time. And this was the greatest gift that I could receive. Not like someone coming to me and bringing me a compliment or no, this was important as well, of course, but the major gift was to be there and was to be present, enjoying that phase of my life. Because today when I look at my story, I can be really proud of myself because I know that I was there. I was living each and every moment at the fullest potential. I wasn't wasting my time. I wasn't, unaware. I was present. And I think that life really reveals its magic when we are in this state of presence, when we are in this state of true awareness. So, yes, let's go on. You said you work in a kind of spiritual emergency room. What did that teach you? Okay, so let me make a little parenthesis here. The spiritual center where I was initiated, where I started to work as a guardian of the medicines, Jiboia Sagrada, it's like a spiritual emergency room. Why do I say this? Because people who are in very dark places, people who are needing soul rescue, come to Jiboia to receive their healings there. So I was able to witness some of the most scary, challenging, and most beautiful at the same time healing process through my journey in Jiboia. Because people who arrived there, some of them were totally addicted to drugs or to negative habits. They were lost. Some of them were trying to commit suicide. They were in very dark places. You know, that person that reaches a point where they don't see a light at the end of the tunnel. And so we considered a spiritual emergency room. And it was very full of people. We started receiving around 60 people per ceremony. And right after the temple was ready, the number increased. So it was like 100, then 110, then 120 people per ceremony. So it was a lot of things happening at the same time. It was a lot of energy. Of course, the team of guardians also increased. We grew as guardians, but it was really intense because the kind of portal that was opened on those ceremonies was really intense, and the depths of the healings that were happening were also really intense. So being in that place and working with people who were really in dark places taught me how to stay in my center, even facing very ugly stuff, not just from other people, but from me as well. Because remember, I shared, it's always a mirror. So when I saw myself before someone who was really in a really dark place, I was also seeing parts of myself that were in desperation, that were lost, that were claiming for help, that were trying to figure things out, that were trying to find this light at the end of the tunnel. And I was rescuing, not just helping to rescue people from those places, but I was also rescuing myself. It wasn't by chance that my own path started in darkness. So when I realized that I was helping people that were going to similar situations that my own, when I had ayahuasca for the first time, I felt the confirmation. I am supposed to be here because I have the codes to help these people, to help this person to go through this situation and to find herself again. But this was only possible because I had to face my own darkness. So sometimes you are going through a very tough phase in your life. You are going through a very dark night of the soul, or you are going through this moment where you think there is no solution, where there is no light at the end of the tunnel, only to realize after you get out of this situation that you were actually receiving the knowledge, the wisdom, the codes to help people that are going through similar situations. So being in that place taught me to stay in my center, even facing the desperation, the panic, the fear, the addiction, the death impulses. And even in the storm, remain balanced, remain calm, remain happy. Because think here with me, if the person is in a desperation mode and you are going to help her, imagine what happens if you go into the desperation with the person. You are not going to help her. So you put yourself in this place of calm, of tranquility. And from this place, you are able to help. You are not dragging yourself into the hole with the person, but you are throwing the rope so the person can climb her own way to the top, to the surface again. So when I was facing some of the most challenging phases of my life, some of them even recently, I remember those moments where I was facing desperation and I remained in my center. I remained smiling. I remained with the faith that everything was perfect, that everything was exactly where it needed to be. And this is the kind of posture that you bring into your day-to-day life because you were forged in battle. And I know the battles that I had faced in my past. So when I was in those kind of situations, even when I wasn't aware of this, I was being prepared. I was being trained to remain in my faith, to remain in my center. And this is something that I practice. This is something that I really learned how to integrate, how to anchor within myself, and makes all the difference in my day-to-day life. So moving on to the next question. What were some of the most powerful lessons or initiations you received during this phase? I will mention one that changed my life completely, which was my initiation in Reiki. Reiki is a healing technique where we channel this healing energy and we do a transmission through our own hands. It hasn't been just by the hands. You can do it by your eyes or through your body, but most of the time we use our hands. So this initiation was also a turning point because it was the time I remember some soul codes that were asleep by that time. And from the moment that I awakened to them again, I was able to reconnect with my soul's family, with my cosmic signature. And this opened a new level of awareness, a new level of intuition, a new level of preparation to help people during the phase of my work in Jiboia. Because Reiki is a really soothing energy. It's a really balanced energy. So when you are working with people who are in desperation and panic or going through whatever they are going through, and you have a resource like Reiki, this makes things so much more easy because you are able to channel this energy and to really magnetize it through your field. And so the person that you are helping can really connect with you and with the energy that you are magnetizing, that you are expanding throughout your field. And this goes beyond words. This goes beyond anything that you can do because you are radiating, you are channeling. You don't actually have to do anything. You just have to be this vessel. So it was a turning point for me in my spiritual development because I felt like I've went through from a level of spiritual development to a whole other level, and I was able to activate some of the most powerful spiritual gifts and qualities that I had that were asleep, and really to use this in my favor, not just to help people but also to help myself. And Reiki has been one of the most important things in my life because I use it daily, not just as a healing tool but also as a path of enlightenment, as a path of spiritual development, and as a path of divine union. It's very beautiful, it's very powerful. Perhaps later on I can make a video, an episode just to talk about Reiki. Today, me and my partner, we offer Reiki sessions and Reiki initiations. We've been doing this for the past 6 years, and it's one of my favorite tools to be working with. Okay, so Reiki was definitely a life-changing resource and a life-changing initiation in my path. Next question. how did the call come to open your own spiritual center? This really brings tears to my eyes because I wasn't expecting. I wasn't even considering opening my own spiritual center. By the time that I was working in Jiboia and that I was really engaged with everything that was going on there, I was at the same time dedicating myself to my current job at the time. I was a chef, and in my cuisine we've prepared some very nutritious and delicious food. But the thing is, and I was graduating in nutrition at the time as well. But the thing is, I wasn't being able to conciliate everything because, as you can imagine, my work as a guardian in Jiboia demanded a lot of time. Every weekend I was there the whole night working, helping people, having the medicine. It was very intense. So by the time that was like Sunday afternoon, I was arriving at my place with my husband, my boyfriend at the time, and we were exhausted. Because imagine how much energy you put into a ceremony like this. It's a lot. It's a lot. I'm telling you because it is my experience. It's a lot. Besides the fact that you spend the whole night awake and that you are having the medicine for yourself, you don't stop. You are always helping someone, dealing with all kinds of situations, processes, and people, interacting with different energies. So you really have to understand how to take care of your own energy. Otherwise, you can be really overwhelmed. And this demands a lot from you. So if you are currently in a spiritual training and also trying to conciliate this with your day-to-day life, you can face some challenges. And I started to notice that I wasn't being able to dedicate myself to the kitchen as I was dedicating myself to the spiritual center. And so I received this invitation from my soul to stop a little bit the work in the spiritual center and start focusing my energy in the kitchen. I was about to graduate and the kitchen was in debt already. It was a kitchen that I shared with my family, so it wasn't just my own project. It was a project of our family, and we were in debt. We weren't being able to pay the bills, so it was a very challenging situation because I was thriving in the spiritual center, in my spiritual training, but my material life was collapsing. And I was receiving at the time a lot of, how can I say this? My father, my mother, they were like, hey, Natalia, do you understand that you have to dedicate yourself more to this kitchen, right? Because, see, look at the situation. And I started to feel this impulse and this inner calling to dedicate more of myself, to focus my energy in the kitchen, because really I didn't have the energy to focus in the kitchen because I was focusing everything in my spiritual training. So I talked to my godmother, to my godfather at the spiritual center, and I said to them, well, guys, I love being here. You know how much I dedicate myself to be here, to really help during the ceremonies, but I feel like I need to give more attention to my kitchen, to my project. And so I decided to take a break from helping during the ceremonies and just attending as someone who is receiving the ceremony. Of course, they were devastated because me and my husband, we were the most active workers at the time, the guardians. We had the experience, we had the knowledge, we had the wisdom, but we also had this call. And my partner, he agreed to dedicate himself with me in the kitchen because we were trying to, build our life together. So the kitchen was already there, and we saw an opportunity to really dedicate ourselves and to engage more with the kitchen. Wonderful. So we are dedicating ourselves, we are focusing our energy, and guess what? Nothing is happening. Nothing. This was one of the most challenging phases of my life because I didn't know what to do. I was giving everything of myself to that kitchen. I was being so committed, and I was engaging so much energy, purpose, intention, focusing, and nothing. For you to have a parameter, think about this scenario. In a very good day, in a day that we sold a lot of food, we delivered like 40 meals. To start having some profit, we had to sell around 3,000 meals per day. And we were selling 40. Think the desperation. Feel it, because that was the desperation I was feeling at the time. What am I doing wrong here? I mean, I am giving all of myself. And in the meanwhile, we were attending the ceremonies, we were receiving the medicine, we were continuing our spiritual studies with ayahuasca. But the kitchen wasn't going anywhere further. And this was giving us the creeps because we didn't know what else to do. And so I remember a couple of months after we dropped the work in the spiritual center, I went to one ceremony, a very important ceremony dedicated to Lord Shiva. Shiva in the Hindu culture is the god of transformation, destruction, ecstasy. And I came with this clear question: what should I do right now? What am I doing wrong? I mean, I am giving all of myself to this kitchen, but nothing is happening. Nothing is shifting. So please, someone help me, please. I need help. And I received one message, just one message. The message was clear and crystal. Close the kitchen. And I was like, okay, and then what? What we are doing after closing the kitchen? And I heard just the silence. Close the kitchen. That was the only instruction that I received at that moment. By the end of the ceremony, I came to my husband, my boyfriend at the time, and I said to him, hey, the medicine answered me. And he was like, yeah, what was the answer? And I said to him, close the kitchen. And he laughed with me because we really didn't know what to do. I was graduating in nutrition by the time. The kitchen was everything that we had. It was a family project, so everyone was involved. Besides that, I had the experience as a worker in the spiritual center, but I didn't have a full degree in college. I was finishing my process there, and I had the experience as a Reiki healer, and as the spiritual worker. But besides that, nothing else. And my boyfriend, he was doing this course of psychology, but he wasn't graduated as well. And we were sitting looking at each other's face like, okay, and what's next? What then? And we decided to trust the unknown. We decided to trust that something would appear for us. And the next day, when we came back from the ceremony, I called my father, I've called my mother, and I said to them, hey, we need to talk. And I just shared the message from the medicine. I said, guys, I think this is it. I think we have to close the kitchen. The medicine was very clear to me. And I really don't know what to do here anymore. I don't feel the impulse to keep going because I was so frustrated. I was dedicating so much of myself and I wasn't seeing the results. So I think that we don't have to go through this path anymore. I think we should really drop it, close it, and trust the unknown. And so that was exactly what we did. We've closed the kitchen. And our clients at the time, they were very loyal because we've prepared a very magical food. Because there was Reiki, it was an organic food, we did vegetarian, vegan meals. It was awesome, it was amazing. It wasn't just food, it was holistic food. We've prayed in that food, but it wasn't our path. It wasn't our dharma. Spirit had a greater call to us, had a greater purpose to us. And so the clients, of course, they got really sad when we said that we were going to close the kitchen. And 1 week after we did it, one of our clients, without knowing anything about us besides the kitchen stuff, she came to us and said, hey, let me ask you something. By chance, do you work with ayahuasca? And I laughed. I said to my husband, hey, check this out. And I showed him the message. And he laughed with me. Oh my gosh, how does she even is asking this to us? And I replied to her, no, we don't work with ayahuasca. And so we moved. A couple of days passed and she went again and said again, I think you should work with ayahuasca. By that moment, our soul knew that was the path, that was the purpose, that was the calling. We didn't expect, we didn't intend, we were invited to open our own spiritual center. And so when people ask me if I wanted to open, if I was like programming anything, I said to them, no. I was summoned by spirit, by divine realms. We were summoned to be here, to execute this mission, this purpose. And since that moment, we started to work in our own spiritual center. Of course, I am going to develop this story in later chapters, but it's a very moving part of my path because I trusted. I didn't know what to do. I just trusted the message from the medicine, the message from spirit. Close the kitchen. And when the time is right, you will know exactly what to do. And so it was. Last question of today's episode. For those feeling the stirrings of their spiritual gifts, what guidance would you offer? I think I already mentioned this in this episode, but I will say it again, just to reaffirm what you already know. Trust your gut. Go beyond logic. Go beyond your mind. Go beyond your ego. Connect with the heart. Connect with the soul. Connect with the impulse that you don't know how to explain. You just know it's real. You just know it's right. That's your answer. That's your message. That's your medicine. Trust your gut. Because we were taught to question our impulses. We were taught to trust our minds when actually the mind is not connected and inspired by source. The mind is logical. The mind has its own way of working. And it's full of conditioning. It's full of programming. So when you disconnect from the mind and really connect to the soul, you don't have to have any proof. You just know. This is it. I don't need any external confirmations. I just need to trust what is being born, what is showing up from the inside out. That's the secret. At least, this is what I practice and always works out for me. So guys, once again, thank you so much for being here. It's always a pleasure to share a little bit of my story and this experiences with the medicine, with consciousness expansion. I love talking about these subjects. I love sharing these stories with you. And I really hope that these messages can change your life, can really help you in your own spiritual development, in your own spiritual training. If you are looking for spiritual guidance and mentorship, you can DM me or call me, comment here, spiritual mentorship, and I will be very glad to guide you through this journey and applying my own experience on your case and helping you to really tune into your intuition and aligning with your soul's path. So if you feel the call, just DM me. I will be very honored to guide you on this journey. And if you feel the call to have an ayahuasca ceremony with us here in Brazil, you also can DM us ayahuasca or ceremony, and we will guide you through the next steps. If you have any suggestions or if you want to talk about a specific subject here in our episodes, please share with us what would you like to listen about, and I will be delighted to develop and deliver to you my best experiences, my best knowledges. It's always a pleasure. So thank you so much for being here, sending lots of love, sending lots of blessings, and I see you soon. Bye-bye.